Chapter 3. The True Doctrine of Mahayana. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "All bodhisattvas and mahasattvas should subdue their minds in this way. For all kinds of sentient beings, whether born from eggs, born from the womb, born from moisture, or born by transformation, whether with form or without form, whether with thought or without thought, whether neither with thought nor without thought, I will lead them all to nirvana without remainder and free them from suffering. In this way, I will liberate countless, limitless, and boundless sentient beings, yet in reality, there are no sentient beings that have been liberated. Why is this? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva holds the notion of self, person, sentient being, or lifespan, then he is not a true bodhisattva. All sentient beings. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all bodhisattvas and mahasattvas should subdue their minds in this way. The Buddha told Subhuti that when you ask how to find peace of mind, you have already found it. After a long time, seeing that Subhuti still did not understand, the Buddha had no choice but to take a step back and explain it again, as the moment of enlightenment had passed, what Zen Buddhism refers to as a missed opportunity. Subhuti did not grasp it at that time. Now the Buddha said, I will tell you again, all bodhisattvas and mahasattvas. The word maha means great, so it refers to all great bodhisattvas. In ancient times, the term bodhisattva was also translated as great sage or enlightened sage, indicating a person who has attained enlightenment. Thus, our white-clothed great sage refers to the white-clothed bodhisattva. The term mahasattva was pronounced differently after the Tang and Song dynasties, with the original Sanskrit pronunciation being maha. The Buddha's phrase bodhisattvas and mahasattvas is an inverted construction, meaning all great bodhisattvas. They should subdue their minds in this way, but how should they do it? He said, all kinds of sentient beings. Now let's explain what sentient beings means. In Buddhist scriptures, the term sentient beings refers to all living things, not just humans. Humans are just one type of sentient being. All animals, microorganisms, and living creatures with consciousness, emotions, and perceptions are considered sentient beings. Therefore, sentient beings do not refer only to humans. The Buddha aims to teach and show compassion to all sentient beings, loving all of them, showing kindness to the good, and even more to the bad. Good people should be enlightened and taught, and bad people even more so. The people in heaven need to be enlightened, and those in hell are even more pitiable and need enlightenment more. This is the spirit of Buddhism, which aims to save all sentient beings. Tanzi's book on transformation, the Buddha said, all kinds of sentient beings, whether born from eggs, born from the womb, born from moisture, or born by transformation, whether with form or without form, whether with thought or without thought, whether neither with thought nor without thought, I will lead them all to nirvana without remainder and free them from suffering. Now, Buddhist teachings have categorized sentient beings into 12 types. The first is those born from eggs, like birds, chickens, and ducks. Those born from the womb include humans, horses, and other animals born from a womb. Those born from moisture include fish, mosquitoes, and flies. Those born by transformation include creatures that undergo metamorphosis, like cicadas, dragonflies, and butterflies. According to ancient Chinese legends, although their truth is uncertain, it is said that sharks that live for over 100 years can leap onto the shore and transform into a deer with antlers. these are also considered transformation-born beings. Few people have studied Chinese transformation texts, but there is a book in the Taoist canon called The Book of Transformation, written by Tan Zi, whose full name was Tan Chiao. He studied both Buddhism and Taoism and was a famous immortal. Tan Chiao's father was an official in the Tang dynasty and the only principal of the university at that time, holding a high position. Tan Chiao was his only son. However, Tan Chiao left home as a teenager, which greatly saddened his father. After 20 years, Tan Chiao returned, dressed in a Taoist robe, wearing tattered shoes and a broken hat, looking odd and carefree, much like the hippies of recent years. He came back to persuade his father to practice Taoism with him. Tan Zi, a renowned Taoist scholar, was very knowledgeable. He authored The Book of Transformation, which suggests that the changes in the universe's life can be controlled, allowing a person to live forever. Is he still alive today? Perhaps he is among us and we don't even know it. When asked how to cultivate the Tao, he wrote a poem similar to the verses in the Diamond Sutra, simple yet imbued with the spirit of Chan Zen. A line is the Yangtze River, a fan is the sky, sandals are thrown to the East Sea's edge. The path to Penglai is not far, it's just in front of Tansheng's cane. He said, "The universe is so tiny, a line is like the Yangtze River, and a fan is like the sky. Sandals, those old-fashioned slippers, are thrown aside at the East Sea's edge. Penglai represents the Taoist immortal realm, and the path to that realm is not far, it's right here." Where? Right in front of Tansheng's cane. This principle is similar to the Buddha telling Subhuti, "Abide in this way, and subdue your mind in this way," meaning the Buddha is not in the Western paradise, but right here with you. However, Tan Zi's Book of Transformation is quite peculiar. After discussing the concept of transformation, it transitions from science to philosophy, and from philosophy to politics, discussing the realm of life and how to educate and transform others. He believed that a bad era and a bad world could be transformed. His theory and philosophical insight were very profound. When talking about Chinese culture, we cannot say it is not part of Chinese culture. We cannot be completely ignorant of the essence of Chinese culture. Sentient beings with form and without form. Aside from the four types, born from eggs, born from the womb, born from moisture, and born by transformation, there is another kind of life that is with form, meaning it has a physical appearance and material form that can be seen. There is also a kind of life that is without form, which is beyond our knowledge and invisible but still exists. For example, ghosts, are they real? I can tell you they definitely exist, and there's nothing to fear. They are formless beings, different from our material world. Let's talk about the living ghosts. You might not have seen them, but if you go to the border areas of Guizhou and Yunnan, you can hear stories about living ghosts. These living ghosts are called Shanqiao. According to Buddhist scriptures, they are form and formless beings. Sometimes they appear to you, and sometimes they don't. If they want you to see them, you will. If not, you won't. When you see footprints in the mountains with toes pointing backward and heels forward, you know Shanqiao is around. They are very polite. Don't call them mountain ghosts, or you'll suffer the consequences. Instead say, "There is a Mr. Shan in the mountains." They will feel respected and won't bother you. These Shangxiao who live in the mountains are quite interesting. When they need something, they will run to someone's house to borrow pots and bowls. They are ugly, short, and walk with reversed feet. We don't understand their language, so they have to use hand gestures to indicate what they want to borrow. The people in the mountains were aware of this, and some mischievous individuals prepared a scheme to trick the spirits. What did they prepare? They made pots and bowls out of paper. The spirits happily borrowed them, but when they put them over the fire, they quickly burned up. However, these mountain spirits, known as Shanxiao, are very trustworthy. Somehow, they managed to get the possessions of wealthy people, but they would never steal within a 100-mile radius. They would go to another region to obtain pots and bowls to return what they borrowed. Many poor people in the mountains would use these tricks to deceive the spirits. So ghosts aren't frightening. Humans are the real troublemakers. They even deceive ghosts. Sentient beings with and without thought. There is another kind of sentient being. Those with thought, meaning they have consciousness and feelings. Another kind of sentient being is without thought, meaning they lack consciousness and feelings. More specifically, some beings have no consciousness, no awareness, but they have feelings. There are also sentient beings in the divine realm, and according to Buddhist classification, the categories of gods are numerous. In a simple division, there are over 30 kinds. In a broader division, over 60 kinds. When analyzed in detail, there are hundreds of kinds. Gods also have their hierarchies, one of which is called neither with thought nor without thought. This state is not devoid of thought, but seems to have no thought. For example, when someone is meditating, they might appear unaware, but at the same time they might be aware. Are they truly aware? Yet they might not be. In truth, there are even more types of life forms in the world, but Buddhist teachings broadly summarize them into 12 categories. There are so many kinds of life in the world, but humans are the most troublesome, though they also possess the most potential. We shouldn't think of humans as merely born from the womb, because in my view, humans encompass all 12 categories of life. We are a combination of sperm and egg cells in the womb, so we are both egg-born and womb-born. In the mother's womb, we are moisture-born. To grow, we need vegetables, radishes, beef, and onions, so we are also transformation-born. Humans are also with form, with a physical body visible to others. But when it comes to the essence of human life, our energy, it is not material and thus invisible, making us also formless. As for with thought, we naturally have thoughts. Sometimes we might be absent-minded or seem thoughtless, as if we are in a state of without thought. Many people who reach the advanced stages of spiritual practice enter the state of neither with thought nor without thought. Even if they haven't achieved complete success, they have already reached this state. Speaking of neither with thought nor without thought, I recall hearing about a few places in China. In a small temple in Shaoxing, Zhejiang, there was a Taoist priest who had been sitting in meditation for over 200 years, still sitting there. Every New Year, the villagers would come to trim his nails. He hadn't died, and when touched, his body was still warm. They said he was in deep meditation. Some people practicing the Tao believed that he wasn't truly in meditation, but had reached a state where he could not exit his physical shell, because he had attained such a high level of practice that he couldn't leave his body. I also encountered a Buddhist practitioner who was said to have incredible meditative power and had been sitting in meditation for 70 or 80 years, neither dead nor out of meditation. He didn't seem to think of anything, appearing almost like a dead person. His back was hunched, and when touched, that spot felt like a pulsing heartbeat, so people said he was still in meditation. However, seasoned practitioners knew that he couldn't exit the meditative state. You young people might be afraid of losing control during meditation. This is what truly losing control looks like. Do you think you're at risk of losing control? Don't worry, you're far from that. But this doesn't necessarily mean losing control. In such a case, this state of life could be described as neither with thought nor without thought. So within the microcosm of human life, we contain all the phenomena of life forms. It's just that most people haven't turned inward to analyze themselves. According to Tanzi's Book of Transformation, humans can become immortals, Buddhas, ghosts, or gods. Humans can transform. It all depends on your own wisdom. Great blessings and pure blessings. Now the Buddha told Subhuti, all kinds of sentient beings pay attention to the phrase all kinds, as the Buddha categorized them into 12 types of life. He said, I will lead them all to nirvana without remainder and free them from suffering. A person studying Buddhism must first make a vow, setting a goal to save all sentient beings in the world. All beings are in pain, all are troubled. Those who are wealthy and powerful have their own forms of suffering and troubles. Those who are poor and facing birth, aging, sickness, and death also suffer. Love brings its own troubles, as does marriage, and even having children brings worries. In short, life is filled with constant pain and troubles. The term trouble is slightly less intense than pain, but both terms describe different levels of distress. A practitioner of Mahayana Buddhism doesn't think of themselves first. Learning Buddhism is about achieving something so that one can help others, guiding them to a state of no trouble, no pain, absolute joy, and purity. What is this state called? It is called nirvana without remainder. Nirvana is a Sanskrit term, and some have translated it into extinction, but this translation is inadequate. Later people used the term carelessly, which is incorrect. Extinction seems bleak, as if there is only a state of purity and nothing else, everything extinguished. Extinction refers to complete quietness without a sound. If the result of studying Buddhism is learning extinction, isn't that quite strange? Why bother with life, which is already hard enough, only to learn extinction and add suffering to suffering? Later, some translated it as perfect peace. Although peace is good, many people don't truly understand what peace is. I often say that Buddhism has two aspects. One is transcending the world, which is about purity, and the other is engaging with the world, which is about the dust and chaos of life. Life in the world, especially in urban areas, is filled with dust and turmoil. Why is the world called dust? In the Tang dynasty, the capital Xi'an was filled with horse-drawn carriages, and the red dust from the northern soil would rise into the air, creating a red haze that was called dust. Now cars emit black smoke, and when you climb to the top of Guanyin Mountain and look at Taipei, it's filled with black dust. Life in the dusty world is filled with fame and fortune, commonly referred to as enjoying great blessings. For emperors, the phrase great blessings as vast as the sky was used, but since the word great was too grand to write, it was replaced with hong, meaning grand or vast. But the word hongfu, grand blessings, isn't actually very good. Although it has a poetic sense, it also carries a hint of irony. Because hong sounds like flight, implying that blessings could fly away, leaving nothing behind. This homophone wasn't noticed by most people and was used indiscriminately. True peace and blessings are called pure blessings. It's easy to enjoy grand blessings in life, but pure blessings are different. Without wisdom, one cannot enjoy pure blessings. Many elderly people, when they reach the stage of life where they could enjoy pure blessings, instead find it painful. When there is nothing left to do, they feel they can no longer live. Many old friends reach the time to enjoy pure blessings, but they end up enjoying them to the point of death, fearing the loneliness and emptiness, not knowing how to live. That's why I often tell young students, you must first learn to enjoy solitude. Once you can do that, you're almost there. You'll begin to understand life and grasp a higher level of existence. Only then will you see that grand blessings are something to be tired of. The Buddhist scriptures say that a person studying Buddhism should first observe if they have developed a sense of detachment, meaning a weariness of the worldly grand blessings. Only with this detachment can one truly begin the path of studying Buddhism. Speaking of this, let me tell you a story. In the Ming Dynasty, there was a man who would kneel in his courtyard every night, burning incense and praying to the heavens. This was part of China's religious tradition, praying to the heavens. After all, Buddha is in the heavens, as are gods, Guangong, Guanyin, Jesus, and Muhammad. It doesn't matter whether it's the Western paradise, the Eastern heavens, the Southern heavens, or the Northern heavens, they're all in the heavens. So he prayed to the heavens, which was the most efficient, as one stick of incense would cover them all. He did this for 30 years with great sincerity. One night he moved a deity who appeared before him, shining with a bright light. Fortunately, the man wasn't frightened. The deity said, "You pray to the heavens every night? What do you wish for? Speak quickly, for I must be on my way." The man thought for a moment and replied, "I wish for nothing more than to have food to eat, clothes to wear, to never be poor, to have a bit of extra money so I can travel and enjoy life, to be free from illness, and to pass away peacefully without suffering." The deity, upon hearing this, said, "Oh dear, what you wish for is the blessing of the gods of the upper realms. If you seek worldly wealth and fame, or status and great wealth, I can grant those. But the simple pure blessing of the gods of the upper realms, I cannot grant you. Consider this. For a person to live without worrying about food or clothing, with money to spend, and to have visited all the beautiful places in the world, who can achieve that? When one's position is high, one becomes too busy to even have time to listen to the Diamond Sutra. How can such a person enjoy this pure blessing? Thus, pure blessings are the hardest to attain. With this understanding, translating nirvana as extinction might convey the sense of pure blessing, but on the surface, it is not easily accepted by most people. In reality, nirvana is a state of being, as described in the Nirvana Sutra as the state of eternal joy and purity. It is the place where, as the Heart Sutra says, no birth, no death, no defilement, no purity, an eternal state of joy, a paradise. That is the true self, not the temporary self of our body born of eggs, wombs, moisture, or transformation, which will eventually perish. The true self is the Pure Land, which is the state of nirvana, the nirvana of the arhats. Nirvana is divided into two types, with remainder and without remainder. Arhats who attain enlightenment experience the nirvana with remainder. Great arhats in deep meditation can remain in this state for tens of thousands of kalpas, a concept that is hard to believe nowadays. To To understand this, let's revisit a story from the Tang Dynasty, The Journey to the West. Xuanzang, the monk who traveled to India to study Buddhism. This story, however, is not recorded in his own writings or in the Great Tang records on the western regions. When Xuanzang passed through southern Xinjiang and reached the northern part of India, near the Himalayas, he encountered extremely cold weather and snow everywhere, except on one mountaintop where snow did not accumulate. Xuanzang, curious, climbed the mountain and found long, thick hair on the ground. After some time, he realized this might be someone from a different kalpa, perhaps from a previous ice age. He dug and found a very tall person sitting in meditation. Xuanzang gently tapped a wooden fish near the person's ear, and slowly the man emerged from his meditation. The man revealed that he was a monk from the time of the previous Buddha, Kasyapa, who had entered deep meditation to wait for Shakyamuni Buddha's arrival and receive his teachings. Xuanzang informed him that Shakyamuni Buddha had already passed into nirvana. The man then said, "I shall wait for the next Buddha, Maitreya." Xuanzang, tugging on his ear, said, "Brother, slow down with your meditation. This isn't a good idea. If you wait for Maitreya Buddha, how will you be notified to come out of meditation when he arrives?" The man realized the truth in Xuanzang's words and said, "That makes sense." Xuanzang asked him if he could leave his body and travel spiritually. Leaving the body is no easy task, as I mentioned earlier about practitioners who, after decades of meditation, still cannot do so. Xuanzang told the man to reincarnate in China and become his disciple, instructing him to be born in the most prominent palace as a prince and to wait for Xuanzang's return. The man agreed and left his body. 20 years later, when Xuanzang returned, he spoke to Emperor Taizong about this matter, searching the palace for the prince born that day, but none were found. Instead, they discovered that General Yuqigong's family had given birth to a nephew on that day. The Arhat, it turns out, had mistaken Yuqigong's mansion for the emperor's palace. Emperor Taizong summoned Yuqigong and said, "I wish to become a monk, but as an emperor I cannot. You must let this child of yours become a monk in my place." Xuanzang thought that the Arhat, with his deep meditative power, would recognize him upon meeting. However, even Arhats and Bodhisattvas experience the delusion of the intermediate state, and upon reincarnation, they forget everything. Although the child had a sense of familiarity with Xuanzang, he couldn't clearly recognize him. The emperor's command to become a monk was, of course, obeyed, but the child had 3 conditions: a cart full of beautiful women to serve him, a cart full of wine and meat, and a cart full of books. This child later became Xuanzang's disciple, known as Master Kuiji, also called the 3-Cart Master, a story that might be an embellished legend. Why tell this story? From this, we can understand that only by achieving the pure, thoughtless state can one enter deep meditation. Moreover, even the physical body can be forgotten, resisting changes in climate and even the physical changes of the earth. This Arhat had such power that when he emptied his thoughts, he entered meditation. However, this state of emptiness of thought is not a place to dwell. Everyone should take special care to understand that emptiness of thought is not a permanent state. It is a false state, not the ultimate goal. The Arhat that Xuanzang unearthed was dwelling in this state of emptiness, which is why it is called nirvana with remainder. Remainder of what? Habits. because his habitual tendencies had not been eliminated, when he reincarnated, he still desired fame, wealth, beautiful women, and luxurious cars. These are the residual habits of this arhat. The Vimalakirti Sutra refers to this as remaining habits not yet eliminated. Some friends who study Taoism or Buddhism might say, "Teacher, I enjoy meditating and practicing Buddhism, but there's something I just can't let go of, play poker." I say, then you should engage in both, play poker and meditate. Both are fine. This inability to let go of certain things is what is called nirvana with remainder. In fact, many of the students here who practice meditation are already in this state of nirvana. They sit here quietly in meditation with their thoughts empty, but as soon as they leave, they rush off to play cards or drink. This is nirvana with remainder. The nirvana of the Buddha. Nirvana with remainder is the state of arhats and is not complete. Nirvana without remainder is the state of the Buddha, which is entirely complete. The Buddha taught that a person studying Buddhism must first vow to enable all sentient beings to become Buddhas, achieving the same realization as the self and entering nirvana without remainder. Therefore, the first step in studying Buddhism is to make a vow. If Mahayana Buddhism lacks this vow, the practice will not succeed. If one only focuses on their own suffering and troubles, without the great vow of Mahayana Buddhism, it does not embody the true spirit of Buddhism. It is negative, escapist, and doesn't even reach the level of an arhat. The Buddha's vow is not for oneself, but for all sentient beings. Although countless sentient beings are saved, not a single being is truly saved. Why is this so? The Buddha said that one must have such a great vow to save all sentient beings, freeing them from suffering and troubles. Suffering and troubles are difficult to overcome, and the Buddha can only show us the way to free ourselves from them. Liberation comes from within, not from external forces. The Buddha merely shared the methods by which he attained enlightenment. It is up to you to practice and achieve it. The Buddha taught and saved countless sentient beings, but he never thought, "I have saved this being," and had no such concept in his mind. This is the Buddha's vow and broad-mindedness. To study Buddhism, one must first cultivate this broad-mindedness, which means that even after helping countless beings, one does not consider it an accomplishment. The Buddha's humility reached the highest degree. He wished to save all beings, yet there was no thought of having saved anyone. Therefore, the Buddha differs from other religious leaders who might claim authority. The Buddha is humble and straightforward, only saying that your achievements are the result of your own efforts. Why is this so? This is the Buddha emphasizing the point. The four notions and my concept. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "If a bodhisattva clings to the notions of self, others, sentient beings, or lifespan, he is not a true bodhisattva." He explained that, Subhuti, if someone who follows the Mahayana bodhisattva path still harbors notions of you, me, him, or even expects something in return after helping others, thinking that the person should acknowledge the favor, that is the way of the worldly law, not the Buddha's way. In Buddhism, once something is given, it's given and should be forgotten, just like a spring dream leaves no trace. If you try to intentionally forget it, then you are not a bodhisattva, because you still have intention. The world creates all beings, but it does not possess them. It is selfless. That's why I often say, the Tao is the common way of the world, belonging to no one. Just take it if you will. So then, if the Buddha has already told you this, why can't you reach the Buddha's state? In the Diamond Sutra, the word notion refers to phenomena or appearances, and from a psychological perspective, it represents perceptions or beliefs. We humans naturally have a notion of self, which is a strong sense of individuality that creates distinctions between ourselves and others. When we cling to these distinctions, we form the four notions: the notion of self, the notion of others, the notion of sentient beings, and the notion of lifespan. These notions are deeply embedded in human consciousness and are the source of many troubles and conflicts. The notion of self comes in two forms. One is physical, where each person sees themselves as a distinct entity. I am I, you are you, he is he, and everyone is different. The other form is mental or spiritual, where someone might think, I have more knowledge, a higher status, or am older, and therefore look down on others as if they were children. Of course, asserting superiority based on age is the notion of self, but young people have their own form of this, asserting themselves based on youth or innocence. Many women assert themselves based on their femininity, and many men do so based on their masculinity. A student might say, I'm just a kid, teacher, please excuse me. I tell them not to assert themselves based on youth or gender. These are all subjective biases, mental constructs of the self. Even when writing an article, one might think, my writing is good, and become upset when someone suggests edits. That's also the notion of self, a mental attachment called attachment to self. The notion of others is broader, encompassing societal and human relations. When people sit together, notions of self and others naturally arise. One might think, the person in front of me is blocking my view, and the notions of self and others begin to emerge. The notion of lifespan follows, worrying about health, disease, and longevity. These four notions are deeply rooted in our senses, primarily through the eyes, and are the cause of human troubles. Kumarajiva summarized them as four notions, while Xuanzang's translation adds three more, making 7. Kumarajiva grouped the latter 3 under the notion of lifespan. The notion of lifespan is significant because humans naturally desire long life. How old are you? 58? Well, I'm 60, so I'm older. This is the notion of lifespan, the desire to live long and stay healthy. When people come to meditate, many of them are driven by the notion of lifespan. They want to be healthy and live long. This is where Buddhism in the Diamond Sutra diverges greatly. It emphasizes that to truly practice Buddhism, one must remove these four notions entirely. According to the sutra, these notions are universal, unbreakable, and deeply ingrained subjective beliefs in humanity. To break free from these beliefs is to be on the path to true Buddhist practice. Now the Buddha tells Subhuti that a person studying Buddhism must first place their great vow and resolve at the forefront, to vow to save all sentient beings, not for oneself, but for everyone. Since we may lack the ability to save sentient beings, we must strive to develop it. The Buddha also said that after fulfilling this vow to save all beings, one should not feel that they have saved anyone. The three-wheel concept of emptiness in giving. This part of Buddhism is referred to as the three-wheel concept of emptiness. The word wheel here is an adjective describing 3 aspects: the giver, the receiver, and the act of giving. The Diamond Sutra now begins to discuss prajna, the first of which is giving. The text introduces the concept of the three-wheel emptiness in giving. There are 3 types of giving. The first is material giving, like donating money or goods. This is external giving. The second is the giving of teachings or spiritual knowledge, such as imparting wisdom or contributing to education. This is internal giving. The third is giving without fear, such as rescuing those in distress. Regardless of the type of giving, the giver should maintain a mindset of selflessness, offering out of a desire to benefit others. This is the spiritual essence of religious practice. One must achieve a state where the giver is free of ego, the receiver is empty, and the act of giving is empty. Compassion is natural, but once the act is done, it should be forgotten. The true spirit of Buddhist giving is to give without attachment, forgetting who the recipient was and what was given. Therefore, when the Buddha taught in this world, he acted as a teacher to both humans and gods, guiding all beings. Once his mission was complete, he said, "Farewell, I will not return." He instructed 4 of his disciples to stay behind, remain in the world, and wait for Maitreya to come. This embodies the 3-wheel emptiness of giving. Happiness and suffering are both non-dwelling. This section emphasizes the giving of teachings because Subhuti had asked how to quiet the mind and overcome distracting thoughts, and how to maintain inner peace and calm. The Buddha answered that it is through giving, letting go. Since Subhuti didn't fully understand, the Buddha elaborated by explaining that the Mahayana Bodhisattva path includes practicing non-attachment in all actions. Whatever one does, it should be done without attachment. This is what we often call letting go. When you do something good, let it go immediately. This is the Bodhisattva path. Conversely, when something painful happens, it must also be let go of. Some people say, "I can let go of good things, but I just can't let go of pain." In reality, good and bad are 2 sides of the same coin. One is the back of the hand, and the other is the palm. If a person can truly let go of the good, they can equally let go of the bad. Pain is a good test of this. If someone cannot let go of suffering and hardship, it's unlikely they can let go of good fortune. Confucian teachings often warn people not to let success go to their heads. This is difficult to achieve. When a person gains wealth, status, or knowledge, their natural inclination is to become proud and forget themselves. Therefore, maintaining humility in success is very challenging. However, in my experience, I've observed the opposite as well. Many people forget themselves when they experience failure. These individuals may have excellent self-control when they are successful, but fall apart when they lose their status and wealth. They feel diminished, shrinking inward, becoming small and insignificant. This is also a lack of self-cultivation. So, whether it's success or failure, both indicate a lack of inner discipline. In other words, their minds are attached. If the mind is attached, it becomes bound, and one cannot truly practice Buddhism. Genuine Buddhist practice does not involve idol worship or superstition. It requires practicing non-attachment in giving. This is liberation. This is the great liberation where everything comes and goes, leaving no trace. Just like when the temple bell is struck, it rings, then the sound fades. The Diamond Sutra remains the Diamond Sutra, and you remain you, unattached to anything. Transforming the 12 types of life. A Mahayana Bodhisattva should make a vow and take action to save all sentient beings, yet feel as though they haven't done anything at all. Helping and benefiting others is something that should come naturally. However, if one still harbors thoughts of benefiting others, saving the world, or helping others, they have not yet reached the true path of a bodhisattva. This applies to external actions of vows, but inner spiritual cultivation is even more crucial. When we practice Buddhism, we seek to achieve ultimate moral discipline, concentration, and wisdom, but many of us become attached to form in our practice, whether in meditation or otherwise. For example, many people practice various methods like meditation, focusing on certain points in the body, or regulating the breath for the sake of physical health. In doing so, they often fall into the notion of lifespan, followed by the notions of self, others, and sentient beings. Naturally, their progress in Buddhist practice will be limited. Similarly, those who practice Pure Land Buddhism and recite the Buddha's name, if they do so with even a subtle attachment to the notions of self, others, sentient beings, or lifespan, will not achieve ultimate realization. All of these are issues that practitioners must carefully observe and correct within their own minds. Regarding the concepts of egg-born, luan-sheng, moisture-born, shi-sheng, transformation-born, hua-sheng, and womb-born, tai-sheng, we previously analyzed how these 12 types of life are inherently present within the human body. Over a lifespan of several decades or even a century, much of our time is not spent living for ourselves. If we closely examine our lives, we'll see that much of what we do, whether for appearances, beauty, or societal roles, is done to please others or to fulfill family responsibilities. Once, a student told me that his parents were very strict with him, and he became angry because he was an only child. He told his parents, "Give me a little more space, otherwise I won't study anymore." This perspective is understandable. Nowadays, young people prepare for entrance exams not just for themselves, but also for their parents, society, and family. It's a pitiful reality. Most people live their entire lives in such a way. Out of the 3 meals they eat each day, only about 1/3 is for their own sustenance. The rest is consumed to support the life forms within their bodies, such as parasites, bacteria, and other organisms. The universe and all its myriad beings, along with various phenomena, exist within our bodies. Thus, we can say that the human body is a microcosm. The left eye represents the sun, symbolizing yang energy. The right eye represents the moon, symbolizing yin energy. Our intestines represent the rivers and oceans of the body. In Journey to the West, they are referred to as bottomless pits. No matter how much you eat, they are never filled. Bones represent cliffs and rocks, and the body is full of various life forms. Each cell is a life, including sperm, eggs, and so on. All of these relate to meditation practice. True meditation practice progresses through different stages of concentration. In the first stage, known as the first dhyana, Chushan, the mind is free from distracting thoughts. In the second dhyana, Ershan, breath is regulated and external breathing ceases. In the third dhyana, Sanshan, the pulse slows down and the heartbeat becomes very faint. In the fourth dhyana, Sishan, thoughts are completely abandoned and the entire body and mind are released, with no sensation remaining. However, to reach the state where breathing and pulse are minimized, one must first transform the 12 types of life within the body: egg-born, moisture-born, transformation-born, womb-born, and so on. This is similar to what Confucianism refers to as transforming one's temperament. Without transforming the physical body, achieving deep meditative concentration is impossible. This aspect of practice is almost never discussed because few people believe it. Usually, the Diamond Sutra's teachings are addressed superficially. This is how the deeper layer of practice works. Now that's the end of the third chapter.